They always say you remember the moment everything changes like it comes with fireworks or some dramatic soundtrack. For me, it was a quiet afternoon, the kind of day where nothing feels important until suddenly everything is. 1 second I was just driving, thinking about work, thinking about how far I'd come, and the next second red and blue lights filled my rearview mirror and my stomach dropped. Not because I was guilty, not because I'd done anything wrong, but because I already knew how this story usually goes. Yeah, that feeling. You know what I mean? The officer walked up slow, real slow, hand resting near his belt like he was already rehearsing the ending. He leaned into my window and looked me over, not like a person, more like a problem he couldn't wait to solve. License and registration, he said, no greeting, no reason given. His eyes didn't leave my face. I handed everything over calm on the outside, pulse pounding underneath. I'd learned a long time ago that fear only feeds people like him. Then he smirked and said it. "What exactly are you doing in this neighborhood?" The way he said it wasn't a question. It was an accusation layered with something uglier underneath. I answered evenly, told him I lived nearby, that I was on my way to a meeting. He laughed, a short, sharp sound like I'd just told a joke he didn't respect. "Step out of the car," he said. That was the moment the old anger tried to crawl up my throat. Not the explosive kind, the tired kind. The kind that comes from being underestimated your whole life, from being talked down to, even when you've done everything right. I stepped out slowly, hands visible exactly like they tell you to. His partner stood a few feet back, younger, quieter, eyes flicking between us like he wasn't fully comfortable with what was happening. That mattered, even if I didn't realize how much yet. The officer claimed he smelled something convenient. I said I didn't consent to a search. His jaw tightened like I'd insulted him personally. "People who know their rights usually have something to hide," he snapped. He was louder now, performative like he wanted witnesses. His partner shifted, cleared his throat, then said quietly, "I don't smell anything." The silence that followed was loud. The officer turned on him so fast I almost forgot I was the one being detained. "You questioning me?" he barked. The younger one froze, but he didn't take it back. He just stood there, eyes locked forward like he'd crossed a line he couldn't uncross. That's when things escalated. The officer grabbed my arm, spun me around, pressed me against the hood of my car. The metal was hot under my palms. His hands moved fast, rough, more about dominance than procedure. He pulled my phone from my pocket, glanced at the screen, scoffed, then tossed it onto the pavement like it was trash. Messages lit up the display, words he didn't bother to read. He'd already decided who I was. He searched the car next. I watched his reflection in the glass, the way his movements changed, confident, almost casual. I didn't see him plant it, but I didn't need to. When he held up the small baggie between two fingers like a prize, I felt that familiar mix of rage and disbelief flood my chest. "Well, look at that," he said, smiling. "Guess I was right. I told him it wasn't mine. I told him I'd never seen it before." He laughed again, louder this time. "That's what they all say." The cuffs clicked around my wrists, tight, final. As he read me my rights, I noticed his partner staring at the ground, jaw clenched, breathing shallow. He knew. We both did. The ride to the station felt surreal. The officer up front was practically glowing, radioing in his clean bust, his voice full of pride. In the back seat, I stared out the window, oddly calm. I wasn't panicking. I wasn't pleading. I was waiting. There's a difference. At the station, everything slowed down. The desk sergeant looked at me twice, then a third time. She took in my clothes, my posture, the way I stood straight, even with cuffs on. When she went through my belongings, her hands stopped. She pulled something out slowly, her expression shifting from routine boredom to sharp alertness. "Hold on," she said, already typing. She ran it once, then again. Then she looked up at the officer who arrested me. "You need to come here." He waved her off at first, still telling his story to anyone who'd listen. When she insisted, he walked over, annoyed. She turned the screen toward him. Whatever he saw there drained the color from his face. For the first time since this started, he didn't have anything to say. The room changed. Phones started ringing. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. People looked at me differently now, not with suspicion, but with something closer to shock. The younger officer stood off to the side, eyes wide like the ground had just shifted under his feet. When they arrived, you could feel it. No yelling, no theatrics, just quiet authority filling the space. They asked for me by name, used my title, unlocked the cuffs with an apology that felt both overdue and deeply satisfying. The officer who arrested me tried to talk his way out of it, said it was a mistake, said he'd followed procedure, that he'd found the evidence fair and square. That argument didn't last long. Footage was pulled, reports were compared, patterns emerged. Too many stops, too many identical discoveries, too many lives derailed the same way. That was the turning point not just for me but for everyone in that building. The younger officer finally spoke up, voice shaking but clear. He said what he'd seen, said he'd been keeping notes, dates, details, said he was tired of pretending it was normal. The fallout was fast and brutal. Investigations opened, cases reviewed, people released, careers ended. Watching it all unfold was strange. I'd spent years being doubted, minimized, treated like I didn't belong in certain rooms. And now the truth was standing in the middle of the room, undeniable. Months later, I sat in a courtroom and watched that same officer stand in front of a judge stripped of everything he thought made him untouchable. No badge, no swagger. Just a man facing the consequences he'd dodged for years. People filled the benches behind him, people whose lives he'd cracked open with lies. Some cried. Some stared straight ahead. Justice doesn't always look the way you imagine, but that day it felt close enough. Afterward, people asked me how it felt to win. That word never sat right with me. This wasn't about winning. It was about surviving long enough for the truth to catch up. It was about every time someone like me was told to stay quiet, stay small, stay in our place. The city changed after that. New rules, new oversight, fewer whispers, more accountability. The younger officer got promoted. He still says the hardest part wasn't speaking up, it was realizing how long he'd stayed silent. As for me, I went back to my life but not unchanged. You don't go through something like that and walk away untouched. I carry it with me not as bitterness, but as proof. Proof that the story doesn't always end the way they expect. Proof that sometimes the person they underestimate is the one who brings the whole thing down. So here's what I want to know from you. When you see someone being treated unfairly, do you step in or do you look away? When power gets abused, do you question it or do you assume it's just the way things are? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Argue if you want. Share a story if you've got one. Because these conversations matter, and silence is how this stuff survives.